Switching gears here. Over to the main topic for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Nick, why don't you hit us with the synopsis real quick?
Yes, because Wes did not put out a poll last week, and I have no motivation to put out a poll because as long as I'm winning or not losing, that doesn't matter.
That's true. That's a good point. Good on you.
So, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, still reeling from the loss of Gamora, Peter Quill rallies his team to defend the universe in one of their own, a mission that could mean the end of the Guardians if not successful.
Written directed by James Gunn, which actually, this is a quick side note. Do you know the actor who played Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs? His name is James Gunn.
No, really?
Yeah. I think it might be 2 M's too, which is weird, but very weird. But nevertheless, this movie was written and directed by James Gunn, starring Chris Pratt as Peter Quill, Star-Lord, Vin Diesel, the voice of Groot, Bradley Cooper as the voice of Rocket, Zoe Saldana as Gamora, Dave Bautista as Drax, Karen Gillen as Nebula, Palm Clementif as Mantis, Chukwudi Iwuji. Now, that's a fun name to say, as the High Evolutionary, the new villain in the movie. Maria Bakalova as Cosmo the Space Dog. Very good dog there. Sean Gunn as Kraglin. And Will Poulter as Adam Warlock. And special shout out to Linda Cardellini as Lila, doing the voice work there.
That was Linda Cardellini? No way. Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, poor Lila. We'll get into that more later. But for the box office and critics reception, this hauled in $282 million worldwide to open things up, including $114 million domestic, 8.4 out of 10 on IMDb, 81.95 split on Rotten Tomatoes, 4.4 out of 5 on Google reviews, with 95% of Google users liking this movie. A little surprised by that 81% from the critics, Wes.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by that as well. But again, like you've said previously, now this is kind of open season on critics to kind of express any displeasure they have with Marvel. So I think that falls in line.
This is true. It's just, it seemed like this was, where, look, I know that there are times where I'm just excited to see comic book stuff be so prominent in the landscape and everything. So maybe, where sometimes I tend to be a few points higher than you, we'll say, when we're doing some of these movies or shows, I account for that with the critics too. And I'm not even trying to bash them. I'm just kind of confused. Like, this felt like a genuinely good movie. Like, forget about the larger stakes of the MCU and everything like that. It just seemed like a well-done movie that critics would be like, no, like an 85 would be the lowest, I would think.
Yeah, and I've seen, I like to listen to both good and bad reviews on YouTube and stuff just to kind of get a feel of where everyone's at on it and try to kind of get the temperature of everything. So I can understand some of the lower scores, and we can get into that a little bit later. But let's get into our scores, our high scores for Guardians 3. So I gave it a 91 out of 100 here. So this is about as satisfying of an ending to the best trilogy in the MCU that you could get. Guardians Volume 3 is jam-packed with heart and action, with some good laughs peppered in that feel, sometimes forced, but, definitely some good laughs in there. This is the best villain of the trilogy, almost by default. And then you have strong performances from Karen Gillen, Rocket, and Chris Pratt there for me.
On the with some good laughs peppered in. So I was in I was actually in a pretty packed theater, which I think since I moved up to New Hampshire, this is the most packed I've seen a theater. No, Black Panther was pretty packed too. Never mind. I mean, for Marvel movies, because Super Mario was the one where the theater was like off the chain. It was crazy. Yeah. But dude, I was sitting next to this guy who laughed like at so much stuff that was not supposed to be funny. Like, I laughed. There was times I laughed out loud. Like, Lauren didn't laugh as much as I did and whatever. But we're watching stuff with like Rocket's flashbacks, and like none of that was supposed to be funny. Like, he chuckled, and I'm like, I looked at Lauren a couple of times. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
This guy's a psycho. I didn't have anyone I realize laughing at those kind of sad parts, but there was this guy on the far end of the corner of the theater that I could hear, a clapper throughout, a wooer throughout, that sort of thing. But people are excited. It's fandom. People are back in theaters. I'm not going to hate on it.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You're sitting next to a creep. I would be a little concerned there. That sounds fair.
Very odd. But I gave this a 93 out of 100. So Wes and I are practically roommates on this. We're living in the same building. I think is the best way to put it. I don't know. Have we ever had the same score on anything? I feel like there's got to be a couple times it's happened, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Captain America: Civil War, 93 split.
Okay,
so on Civil War of all things, we were undivided on that.
That's perfect. Well, like Civil War, I also gave this a 93 out of 100. This movie, what an emotional ride! I never felt comfortable throughout the entire viewing process.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, I could see this becoming my favorite Guardians movie.
I could see that as well, and maybe we can just touch on some of the things that I think that I heard some people didn't like. I think first was the length, 2.5 hours. I think people can feel some type of way about that. I was fine with it. I thought the story was intriguing enough and kind of kept me engaged enough where I wasn't looking at my clock, my watch, or anything.
Yep.
But also with that, where you have so many plans to land, or planes to land, plans to unfold, that you don't. It feels a little bit rushed at times too. While even in that length, maybe you don't get to explore some of the interesting concepts about like the high evolutionary, about having free will and being under the control, of a god or something. That whole thing, predestination. So I think that's really interesting. That was just kind of glossed over that I would have liked. Although I found the Rocket backstory really effective and how they did it in flashbacks while he's unconscious or in a coma. Maybe you could have gotten more time with it by doing it a different way. I don't know, but I think everything works. But I think those were some of the flaws with that when people had in the movie.
When you talk about the certain things being rushed, I think that I can see that. Like I didn't feel that way in the viewing process, but now, like as we're talking about it, I can see that to some extent, because when you look at kind of, first of all, like you said, there's so many planes that you're trying to land or submarines that you're trying to bring into port. I'm not sure where you're going, but I like with Rocket, obviously they did a lot. I actually felt like pretty satisfied when it came to the high evolutionary, but I think when we get into how things transpired towards the end, maybe with Mantis more so. That's there's a whole bit there. But I think the ones that stand out the most are probably Drax and Star-Lord. But we can get into those a little bit more.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So with that 93 and 91 grade overall, that puts us at a rock solid 92. Which puts it in a top 10 movie in the CMMCU rankings.
Yep.
So at a 92, that's just behind Spider-Man No Way Home, which got a 92.5, and just above the Avengers and WandaVision at 91.5. And then if you want to look at the rankings for within the trilogy, it goes Guardians #1, which comes in 6th overall with a 93. Then Guardians Volume 3 with a 92 at 9. See if you're keeping track at home. Then scrolling down a little bit, Guardians Volume 2 coming in at 3, really 26th overall in the MCU rankings with a combined score of 84.5. That's a lot of numbers.
Yes, it is a lot of numbers, but it goes 1 is 1, 2 is 3, and 3 is 2.
Yes. Yeah. You got it. Yeah. Now tweet us what you think it is, and we'll tell you. It's like one big shell game. We're just moving the cups around,
Exactly. Wherever it is, you're wrong. But yeah. So, but out of 40, there's 40 movies or 40 pieces of content, I guess, right?
That's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, because we got a bunch of different shows in the mix here. But having that at 26th, and if you're just doing movies, it's a little bit higher because there's 4 shows that we have ahead of it at this stage for Guardians Volume 2. But like you said, this is unquestionably the best of all the trilogies. Even though Captain America also has 2 top 10 rankings, the original one is also lower than Guardians Volume 2.
That's true. That's a good point there. And then, Thor, I'm not sure if you want to count Thor because it's 4 movies and may have gotten himself out of there. I'm partial to Iron Man. That's great. But Guardians has been top notch for me.
Yep.
They landed the plane, albeit a lot of them, they did it in a satisfying way. Maybe not the best way, but it was a satisfying ending.
I think too, when you look at the second, like when you watch this one now, there's a specific line that said, and again, for those who are new to the show, we always do spoiler-filled podcast. When there's a line from Lila, and I think it's actually when Rocket's like ready to cross over to the other side, she says how like the story's always been about you. And while it may not have felt like that in the first one necessarily, you look at the second movie, and as we talked about in our last episode of our show where we did a debate on the original versus sequel, there's a lot about Rocket in there, just as much as him and Quill, pretty much.
Well, yeah, and it's him and Quill kind of butting heads the whole time, kind of jockeying for alpha supremacy within the group. So yeah, for sure, absolutely. Yeah. Let's get into the exit survey questions here. Where does this rank in your post Endgame rankings? This seems like a pretty stock, generic question to open things up. I think I've seen this question a couple times on the interwebs.
Sure. Yeah. The only thing that it's behind right now for me is Spider-Man No Way Home, because Spider-Man No Way Home is, I think, my highest rated Marvel movie that is not Endgame or Infinity War. It does have the same grade as Black Panther Wakanda Forever, but I did like this a smidge more. And also like Rocket's my favorite character in the MCU, so that's just unfair bias.
Yeah, this is definitely number 2 behind Spider-Man No Way Home, and I think I had Loki almost at an even ranking there. Maybe
smidge lower. No, smidge higher for Loki. You had it at 92.
At 92, okay. And I might, looking back, I think I do like Guardians more than Loki. Obviously, it gives you a lot more of an emotional range, although there's plenty of that in Loki as well. So I would say that's probably jockeying for position. No Way Home, Guardians 3, Loki, then Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. I think that's probably my top 4 or 5.
Yeah, and even then, like with Spider-Man No Way Home, just looking at our scores, that Spider-Man No Way Home is 8th in our rankings. You actually gave that a 91 as well, so it's right there. Like I had Black Panther, Wakanda Forever.
Right along the same way there. Okay, all right there.
Yeah. Let's see. What do we got next? Oh, what did this movie do better than the previous 2 movies, Wes?
It definitely tugged on the audience heartstrings. I think you bring up a good point, Nick, where Volume 2 is definitely kind of trying to do that with the father-son aspect and kind of like the family relationship sort of thing. I think this definitely goes far and away over Volume 1 and Volume 2 there. And maybe the action scenes, I'm trying to think like I think Guardians Volume 1 probably has that for me, just kind of based off memory here, but there was a lot of good set action pieces here that I enjoyed.
Yeah,
they're showing everyone off.
Yeah, and we can get that into that when we get to the most rewatchable scene, which I know is there shortly. But yeah, just to echo the sentiment when it comes to the Volume 2, like it was after rewatching it for our debate, I grew to appreciate the Star-Lord stuff a little bit more because of what goes on with him and Ego. I think Ego's just so like out there and gregarious and everything like that. You kind of lose like how toxic of a parent he is. But in reality, when you focus on the facts, it's like, holy shit, this guy's like the biggest piece of shit in one of the biggest pieces of shits in all of Marvel. And then you look at the development of Rocket and Yondu. And again, as someone who loves Rocket, I appreciate all of that even more. But here, everything they did, like with the flashbacks and everything, the development of Rocket, it was, I mean, obviously this is a Rocket movie, but I'm blown away at how you have him in like the present. He's not even involved in half of the movie. Most of his stuff is flashbacks, and I'm still blown away at how I absolutely loved every second of Rocket related stuff.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. With that said, what was the most rewatchable scene for you?
So I think you put it as the corridor fight, but the
hallway scene. Yeah, another classic MCU hallway scene.
That was outstanding. And actually, when we were talking about it afterwards, Lauren pointed out like how like when Nebula gets like her neck broken and it just like lops off.
Yes,
she just keeps going. That was crazy. But there was a ton of awesome stuff in there. But the big one for me that like stood out as like, this is a weird one to say your rewatchable scene, but like when we talk about action, right, all the time, we want to see cool shit. Don't get me wrong. That hallway scene is cool shit. But when Rocket lays into the High Evolutionary, tears his face apart, and we don't even see his face, like what happened to it.
No, and it didn't feel like it was that bad at the time. And then when you get the reveal that the High Evolutionary's face is really his mask, and it was because of Rocket, it was like, oh man, he really did all that.
I didn't think it was necessarily that bad, but I thought it was like absolutely. He was doing it for a while. Like it was very much like when you talk about like just a passionate act like of violence. I guess like that's what this like. We don't get that all the time in the MCU.
But you get it in A Christmas Story when Ralphie did it to the big bully.
Yeah.
Oh, you gonna cry, girl? Cry, girl, cry.
Is that
That's like the same thing.
is that? I wonder if that was James Gunn's pitch for like Rocket, like going off, like Baby Rocket.
Exactly.
Like it's good. Just think Ralphie in A Christmas Story, but a raccoon.
Yep.
But anyways, but yeah, I like, to me, like, it was obviously like the emotions of the kids. Now you make me think of the freaking Christmas Story of his friends getting taken out was terrible, and like I welled up. I don't know if Lauren cried, but like I felt that. But when Rocket loses his shit, I was like, yeah, like that was, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it again. That was like, again, like, it's weird, but like Rocket has some of my absolute favorite moments in the MCU, and they're kind of odd ones, but it's something about the character, man, and how damaged he is and how he always plows through it. Like seeing him unleash on High Evolutionary like that was satisfying.
And we get almost like the inverse Prison Break scene from Volume 1 in Volume 3 here, kind of going into the Orgo Corp headquarters there to retrieve the brain IP, right? Or the plans to kind of save Rocket and remove that kill switch there. So I thought that was great. You get, again, another whole team aspect of it, but you also get Nathan Fillion's character, Master Kraja, I think his name is, or Karja, something like that, using a pretty badass gun that seems to be effective on everyone. I think it's Nebula and then also Drax, where this probably could have been the place for him to go if he was going to send someone out.
I mean, yeah, I question the effectiveness of that gun if it didn't take him out, because he got a straight shot to the chest and then another big blow to the back. It's like, okay, like, is this not?
Yeah.
What are we waiting for? What's going on?
He's not wearing a shirt. He doesn't have any body armor on.
Yeah, that very much threw me.
But I thought that was all kind of, again, just kind of classic Guardian stuff. The team kind of working together. Everything's kind of chaotic. Plans aren't exactly going to schedule, but they still managed to get it done anyway. So I love all that stuff, even if it was a little bit longer in how it played out.
You bring that up to that scene. I'd forgotten about this, but like where Mantis, like, her ending was weird. This was also a great Mantis movie, like for the general portion of it. Like what she did with the those monsters was crazy, but that fight scene where she's like jumping from person to person and like, you want to dance, like violent rage, like all that stuff's like, holy crap! Like if you can move around and do what she does, you're an effective fighter.
I was just going to say, what an effective way to show off someone's powers who to this point was really bullshit. You're just like, what are they bringing to this other than like the comic relief to it, right? So I thought that was really, really cool way to see it unfold in the fight. Good job on you, Nick. Also, but I think this really sets the tone for the movie here. This might be my nominee. Is the Adam Warlock versus the Guardian scene. When we first get introduced to Adam Warlock, right off the bat, it's in nowhere. Before like they really have any time to catch them, it's an ambush, right? So it's coming right in. He's coming right into Rocket's window, and you just see how badass he is. I mean, he's kicking everybody's ass, and I don't really know what his deal is, so to speak. He was. I think people were saying on the internet after the fact that he was like a big baby. He wasn't fully developed yet, so he was still kind of learning through life. But his power set, I don't really know what his deal is as far as that's concerned. But seeing him go 1v Guardians was pretty awesome. And again, I thought that set the tone for how brutal this was going to be. I thought this was just like overall some of the more brutal action sequences and fight sequences that we've seen in the MCU, and that goes to James Gunn's tone.
Yeah, and you know what? Two things on the Adam Warlock stuff. First, they did. I think it was technically his mom, the High Priestess, said like, you took him out too early. Aisha, there you go. You took him out of his chamber too early. But the other thing too, when it comes to the larger fight, again, talking about Drax and him surviving this movie, like that was another scene where it felt like it would have been too early to take him out that quickly. But it did set a tone of like, dang, Drax might take like a serious pounding throughout all of this because he got worked in that fight.
And also Nebula, I think I remember her taking some heat in that fight too against Warlock before she ultimately comes through and just stabs him through the belly there. Which again, like all these powers of people, and I know it's like you have to have a suspension of disbelief, but like how that can work and to cut right through someone's body, but like a gun doesn't stop Adam Warlock. You know what I mean? Like he just blows right through walls and all this other stuff. So, but like a a sharp blade can cut right through him. So I don't know. It's like the same thing in Volume 2 with those animals there that we see come back in Volume 3. Gamora, it's like, they have impenetrable skin, but there's already a cut on the impenetrable skin, and Gamora can just use her sword to cut down and open up the belly. It's like, all right, how does that happen? But you just go with it. You just got to go with it.
As you're breaking it down now, though, I was thinking about Nebula's arm too, because where did that come from? It was like there was like an itch that something was itching at my brain. It's like, where is that from? I may be wrong, but remember that big thing, that big knight kind of thing that was at the end of the original Thor movie? That big dude with the mask.
Yeah.
Was that what her arm was like? I'm just that's a question to the people, too, not just for you.
That's interesting. I know at one point she's like, we owe Rocket our lives. We have to save him because he's upgraded me or helped me become whole again. So I think that was one of the upgrades. And I think in one of the YouTube videos I saw breaking it down, maybe this was New Rockstars, Eric Voss, maybe that was him, but saying that maybe he, after kind of, tangoing with Iron Man and his nanotechnology there, and they kind of had a little bit in Endgame and Infinity War, a little one-on-one time. Maybe he was able to adopt some of that tech in there. That's a stretch, but I can see that too. Right?
I don't think it's that much of a stretch. I think that looked more. That's what it looked more like. That's what it was. That's what it was, not what I said.
So Eric Voss, New Rockstars, they know their shit. They're good stuff there. But this is again, we talk about action scenes all the time and most rewatchable scenes, but an honorable mention, that opening one-shot scene with Creep by Radiohead there, and Rocket's just kind of checking on everybody and slowly moving. Again, I think that's a tone setter for the whole movie there, and opens up really solemnly, really kind of depressing. Of course, that song, it's kind of like a loner's anthem in so many ways. So I think that not only tells you where the state of the Guardians were when we catch up to them, but again, what the tone is going to be for this movie overall.
Not to throw this is a quick question that I kind of just came up with as you brought up that scene.
No quick questions here.
With
all on script.
We know that the first movie has the best soundtrack. I think this is the same order here. I think it goes the first movie, Guardians Volume 3, and then Guardians Volume 2 for soundtracks.
Yeah, I think so too. I love Florence and the Machine at the end. The dog days are over. I think that's great, and everyone's kind of dancing. You get Drax kind of coming full circle there. Only idiots dance, and he comes up joining in. I think there's a lot of joy and hope and jubilance in that, right? And that's kind of, again, what it's trying to convey. And maybe James Gunn's overuse of music is too on the nose for some people, but I think it's nice. I think it's effective storytelling. Yep. I love music videos, so I think anything that kind of goes to that is interesting. And then when it blends in and out between just being background music for the actual characters to being the soundtrack for the audience, I think that's kind of cool too.
That's a very good point, because they do that quite a bit. I feel like with Quill more so than anybody. Well, Rocket too. That's a big part of his thing too.
Yeah.
Really good stuff.
Were you satisfied by everyone's ending to their stories? We talked about this, quite a few times already, but just not in depth. So, were you good with everyone's endings?
So across the board, if you're asking for a binary answer, I would say yes, because I'm happy with what they did with Rocket. Because I'm thinking all this. Why would Bradley Cooper want out of this deal? I mean, he's got a great gig like this.
Him and Vin Diesel, right?
Yes. Groot, same thing. Groot had Groot kicked ass in this movie. I mean, when he's got all the guns and taking on the high evolutionaries people.
And he's pulling them out from under the bark of everything, and it's like, that's so cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
And obviously the hat tips.
It's a show off, right? What is it? It's not an ambush. It's a show off. Is that what he says? Face off. Yeah.
But it was also a nice hat tip to the original one where he yells, "I am Groot," going back to back with Pete and everything. But yeah, so great for them. I think for Nebula, it was a great showing. I know you might feel different. I feel like you feel differently than me on this one. Gamora, I do really like what they did a lot with her, because now she's a totally different person. And now I don't know how much we're going to see of her going forward, because Zoe Saldana is trying to do different stuff. But I kind of like her as an asshole. I don't need another romantic relationship.
No, not what I had written down here was she was put in a tough spot. I think James Gunn was put in a tough spot with Gamora, because he had the Russo brothers kind of finish her story without him there, through Infinity War and Endgame. So now he's like, I got to come back and finish the story without my lead love interest and my co-lead in the movie. How do I kind of rework this? So I think he was kind of making lemonade out of lemons. You know what I mean? So
gotcha.
I don't hate. I think it works. Truth be told, I was never really sold on the relationship between Peter and Gamora anyway. She always felt icy, even in Volume 2 when they were together. I didn't, I'd have to go back and watch Infinity War and see that, but it always felt like Quill thought so much more of Gamora than the other way around.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, which is why I
didn't make me care as much,
That's why I kind of like this a lot. Like, she's a badass and she like doesn't fuck with anybody else. Like, I know we see her kind of get more family-ish towards the end, but like that felt a little more real to me. And with, like, everybody's like on her about it, like, whether it's Nebula or Star-Lord. But speaking of which, Quill, it's like an odd choice, but I'm actually very interested to see where it goes, and I want to let you go, so I'll just be quick on these. Drax, actually, I'll let you weigh in on that, and Mantis was a little bit odd, but like, she's also the least character I'm invested in, so it was kind of like, okay, like, she's weird, like, it's a weird ending, okay, I'm fine with it.
But she's like, I'm just going to go and find myself. Like, what does that mean? The writers were like, we just need to go and do, like, she's just going to take those Snorlaxes or whatever they're called there, amulets, and then they just go off into space, and it's like, all right, now what?
I do not know what you remember Snorlax being like, but it was not like those fuckers. I'll tell you that right now. But I do think that makes sense. Like, she laid it out, but at the same time, it was just like random out of nowhere. But anyways, where do you stand on all this?
No, I'm with you. I thought Star-Lord was a little off, going home to a grandfather who was only seen, just in the first few moments of the first movie. Like, obviously it's his grandfather, that would mean more to him, but as an audience kind of taken in this movie, I'm like, all right, that doesn't really mean anything to me. So I think he should have just stuck around. I think he should have stayed to kind of lead, or kill him off if he's not going to come back. But I think Chris Pratt has said that he would come back to Star-Lord, and of course the end credits scene.
Yes.
But like, Chris Pratt himself would actually come back without James Gunn to take on the role as well. So, I think that's fine. That's not great. I thought Rocket was awesome, although, we talked about this before the show, but the perfect okie doke. He was probably the odds-on favorite to die. Everyone, everyone was saying that, just the way the trailers were set up. So for him not to die and have this kind of leader redemption story, feels a little bit like the okie doke, the subversion of expectations, but kind of flipped there. Groot was awesome. Mantis, I'm with you, but Drax should have also died at the point that we just said. But again, the alternative of him getting to be a dad is cool, and kind of to live that. You're not a destroyer. You were meant to be a dad. Great line delivered by Mantis there. There's a couple really great lines. You mentioned the tearjerker factor. I'm there by myself, just seeing the movie on a quick 3-hour window that I have to go get out of the house. I'm like, all right, great. I'm sitting next to some couples who are on a date night, and I'm like, don't cry. And I was having like single Indian tears come down at that point, So yeah, that was really good. But all in all, like, it's not, I wonder what they left on the cutting room floor in the writer's room, or what got thrown out as other options, but this all works for me. It may not be perfect, but it works.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point. I do wonder what they left on the cutting room floor, but Drax is the only one where I really look at it and I'm like, why didn't you, like?
Because he's not coming back.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he wanted to, like, maybe he was like, maybe someday I could, but I need to get away from it now. He just made it so public. Who the hell knows? That's got to be the only reason. Because, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess you want to give him a nice ending, but Drax dying would also be a meaningful ending for him.
That's also a good ending too. I don't think there's anything wrong with killing off beloved characters, especially if it's an earned death, for a warrior's death, if you will. Yes. Especially for someone like Drax, I think that's perfectly fine.
Yes, but I think in the end, like, I'm gonna look back on this and I'm not gonna be like, oh, they really should have killed Drax. And maybe I will. I don't know, but it's not gonna bother me as much as I'm like the other stuff, I guess.
I hear you. What do you think is gonna age the best from this movie? I think we got a lot to choose from.
I think I like how they changed Gamora, and obviously it's different person. So I never change. This is just who I am. So if she's in the mix more later on, that would be really fun to have space adventures and then run into Gamora. I think the action, I think the emotion of it all, and to that end too, like Rocket, everything about Rocket, like just the angle that they took, and like being funny in the first one, more goofy probably I would say in the second one. They went real like serious here, as much as they put in some laughs, and I absolutely loved it. Like I'm very excited to rewatch this movie.
I am too. I already want to rewatch it too. So I was like, it was like moments after leaving the theater. Like I can't wait for this to come on demand. So I'm with you.
The joke that will probably age best, as much as this wasn't necessarily the best Kraglin movie, but like whatever about Kraglin, Cosmo, like the whole bit with Cosmo was great.
Yeah. The Cosmo was great. I still think this is going to get all the love from the Marvel nerds, but I still loved it too. It's Chris Pratt saying, "Get in the fucking car." Because that's just great. That's good stuff there. Yes. But I love Cosmo was awesome. I mean, nothing bad, not a bad bone in that dog. Very good dog, other than being Russian. But they kind of softened that up a little bit there. You know?
They did such even the card game, right? With Howard the Duck and
not the
collector, but that other guy who was like trying to take the
what's his name? He's like the collector's bargainer or something like that. Yeah, he's the buyer.
But even at the table, they're like, they did this to me, but you know what they never did? Say I wasn't a good dog.
Yeah.
So pissed. The whole movie.
Oh, it's like, and her telekinetic powers, like that's cool. That really came into handy there too. So I'm with you. Cosmo, very good dog there. I think Adam Warlock, quite literally, is going to age better because he was such a young boy. And so once he develops into a grown man, and grows into his powers and knows what he's doing a little bit, knows what his deal is a little bit more. I think that's going to work out well, especially when we get to Secret Wars. You mentioned his backstory. I've already mentioned this too, but I thought there was effective storytelling to weave in his backstory through a coma as flashbacks there. I thought that was cool. So you can still get everything there. Although if you did want more, that might be a negative for you. But I thought that was effective storytelling to be able to cover as many bases as they had to there. I love the look of the High Evolutionaries Orgo Corp headquarters with that organic tissue made spaceship thing. I thought it was very gross, but I thought that was cool. I thought that was really interesting.
It was very well done, but it was definitely gross.
What do you think is going to age the worst, Nick?
I mean, we brought up Kraglin, and I know you had him jotted down too. Like he was just kind of meh.
Yeah.
And I know I said it before, but like how I won't be bothered by Drax surviving it. Every time I do think that every time I see the scene at Ergo Corp where he gets shot twice and looks like really messed up by it, I'm like, you didn't die there? I thought for sure. So that will probably be the one thing I will ask myself about when I watch this.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a suspension of the disbelief there on hold, right? That's there. But I'm with you on Kraglin. I don't see the point. I mean, he's not there. I find him actually like very off-putting to look at. Like I feel like he's shaped like a potato, and it's just very oddly shaped. Doesn't do it for me. The fin doesn't do his head any favors. It just doesn't work. I just didn't care about his backstory, and like the whole thing could have just been an allegory for him just not being able to get it up. You just needed some Viagra.
Oh my god, that is what it kind of was. That's actually really funny.
So James Gunn writing that in for his brother is like kind of a low blow.
It is, but I will say when he finally got the thing going at the end, when he finally got it up, it was great.
Yeah, oh yeah, rock hard, full blood, full blood there.
Leaning into a full bore.
But really, what ages the worst? This gets my vote. Peter Quill nearly dying to retrieve his Zune, only to be saved by Adam Warlock. That just seemed like a dumb thing to get Adam Warlock into the Guardians.
That's okay. That's fair. I was like,
he had to come back and save and then get into the group. I was like, that's the only reason, because it makes no sense why he would chase after that thing. One, chase after that thing, but two, do it without his helmet and his boots, which were absent for this whole movie. Another thing I'm not crazy about.
When I was watching, I'm like, they're gonna I have no problem. Like it going in, I had no problem with him dying. Like it makes sense. Like in general, again, it's fine if you kill important characters, but I'm in this moment, I'm like, we're talking about earned death. I'm like, really? This is how they're gonna take him out? Like I know how important his music is to him, and it's obviously become a thing with him and Rocket too. But really, so that I was really that like did throw me when I was watching it.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think about the High Evolutionary? Because I think he's gonna age the worst. I thought Chukwudi Iwuji did an awesome performance. I thought the High Evolutionary again was the best villain in this trilogy, almost by default. But I thought he was menacing. And I thought he did the evil, godlike, egotistical, mad scientist thing very well. but never once did I fear him as a fighter or a threat. He's so insulated with this world around him that he's never really faced a challenge. It's why a little raccoon like Rocket, and who's been, his slave in a cage for how long, was able to get the best of him and rip his face off, right? So like, I don't really view him as like a threat. Like, he's just someone who was off in his own corner building his world who pissed off the wrong person.
I think the fact that
what I mean?
I understand what you mean, because clearly, I mean, he didn't learn after Rocket got the best of him the first time around. And then I will say he did show off more power, because when there was that mutiny, which was kind of cool, when there was that mutiny with him, like the screen went white because of his power. But
you don't really see it. Like, you see that in like a fit of rage, but he's just so controlled. Like, I don't know, maybe you just don't see him enough to really be threatened by him. I don't know. That was cool though.
Do you think he's going to age poorly, like going forward in the next time we see him, or do you think like on rewatch of this movie he's going to age poorly?
No. I think moving forward, like, obviously, I don't know if he's in the fold or not, but how much of a threat could he really be? I don't know.
This is where I disagree.
An army, but then it's just like a nameless, faceless army.
This is a guy who like is going to learn from his mistakes, though. And I think where he got his ass kicked the second all the Guardians were together and coming after him, I don't think he's going to let that happen to him again. Where he's also surrounding himself with a level of buffoonery too, between the Sovereign and
Well, I would say the flip side of that is that he's so egotistical that for a long time he wasn't really able to get that breakthrough that he was looking for, because he was so consumed by Rocket besting him in that first science equation, right? And it's like, how could you do that? I created you. How did you get that in your brain? Nice. And that consumed him, and that's what ultimately made him underestimate him almost, because he was so blinded by that jealousy that he couldn't do it. So I wonder, after getting bested by these
that's fair
idiots, that he's like, again, beside himself, can't pull himself together, maybe goes into a desperate despair. But again, that's two sides.
When you say that, though, it's like it makes perfect sense. I think they have two ways that they can take this character. They're in a really, I think they're in a really good spot with the character. But you're right, it could easily turn into him rocking back and forth in a corner of a prison in a straitjacket. Yeah, exactly. Or he could like learn from his mistakes, break out of a prison, and then seriously fuck some shit up. So it could go. But I could see your way being the way they go too. I don't know.
I love Chukwudi Iwuji. Yeah, I just butchered his name, but you know what I mean. Chukwudi Iwuji. I think I got that right. I thought he brought a lot of charisma to this role. I thought that it was great. It was kind of similar to Kang, where it was controlled. But this one, he was kind of like demeaning, like talking down. Like Kang kind of talked to you as an equal, or Ant-Man or whoever as an equal, but he would talk down and almost belittle Rocket. Like, oh, you're so smart, but you didn't realize that you were coming to this new Earth.
Yeah, there's like I know
little brain, that little brain of yours, and kind of like pats him on the head,
Yeah, where Kang is like again, like how do we put it last time? It was Thanos is like, he believes he is inevitable, and Kang is like, Kang knows he's inevitable. Yeah. I think with this guy, like, he thinks he should, like, he is like, he's like the step down from Thanos when it comes to that. Like, he thinks he should be inevitable. That's what it is.
Right. I like that a lot. That's pretty good. That's a good breakdown for it. I think we can just end it on that.
Yeah. Tell everybody.
And then the last one was just lack of a payoff on the stakes. Everyone gets a happy ending. I think someone deserves to die here.
Yeah, someone should have gone. I agree.
Someone's got to go. Who had the best performance by a side character, Nick?
This isn't even a conversation. As a fellow dog lover, I'm picking Cosmo.
Oh wow, this is now you're pandering to the crowd here. So Cosmo is great. Now my problem that I run into this is Nathan Fillion's Master Karja, who has this great on running joke throughout his appearance of him being like, yeah, I got one of those idiots too in my group. How do you deal with them? And it's just so funny. I think that's awesome. And actually, James Gunn has been getting a lot of heat. I don't think rightfully so, for putting in like all the same characters from the Suicide Squad: Nathan Fillion, Sylvester Stallone, his wife, for example. I think Johnny Economos, the big guy, had some unaccredited appearance in there. And then, of course, who the other one is? Who am I blanking on? There's a couple other people there that I'm blanking on, but who all appear on it. And they're saying, oh, he's just putting his buddy. His brother. Yeah, absolutely. But you're just putting all your buddies in there, all this and that. And I'm like, this is what Adam Sandler's been doing his whole career, and we love him for it. Like, and I think, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking for myself here, Nick, but as I get older, I just want to work with my friends. I find myself reaching out to people that I know on projects and stuff that I need to get done because, one, there's a reliability factor, and two, if I'm going to have to be doing this work, I want to do it with people that I know and that I trust and that I like being around.
What team in like the history of like all like what you're talking about, like real life or like cinemas, like do you like 9 times out of 10 you're seeing people work with people who they're familiar with?
Christopher Nolan does it, with all of Michael Caine and all of the Batman movies. He was using Inception, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy. Yeah,
100%. So no, I mean, I understand working with new people here and there and bringing different people in the mix, which happens. But like, why would you not want to work with like a strong like base?
Yeah. I don't think it's warranted, but that is surfacing on the internet as well. So Nathan Fillion, Cosmo the Space Dog, got to go with Cosmo the Space Dog on that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the little girl at the end, Phyla Vell?
She was one of the children, right?
She was one of the children saved from the High Evolutionaries' grips there, and is a new member of the Guardians.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have strong feelings either way about her.
Well, no, I just mean like, have you heard of her before? Do you know what her deal is in the comic books or anything like that?
No, I am not familiar with her at all. Space is just in general usually not my thing. As much as I love Rocket, ironically,
because there's a lot of kids coming up now. You got Love, that little girl there from Thor: Love and Thunder. You have Eternity, who I think is also there. All that kind of stuff. So I wonder what's going to be happening there.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. That is an interesting point. Yeah,
interesting. Weird stuff. Who lost this movie, Nick?
I mean, there's an obvious choice.
Yeah,
the high evolutionary is the obvious choice. The other one, and obviously,
I like this though.
Yeah, the other one is the Sovereign. So the high evolutionary, obviously an outstanding performance, but just takes a huge L. Whether you look at how his face looks at the end, or all his plans and how like it all just falls apart. Everybody like mutiny on him and everything. But with the Sovereign, where they're like introduced to us as this like powerful, like the highest, like the highest level of evolution,
perfection.
Honestly. Yes, perfection. It's like, no, they're just like glorified like idiots. Like they're all good looking morons is what they basically are. And that's well, I mean, we knew they kind of sucked in the first time they were around, but it wasn't like that.
And again, how quickly they get knocked down, not just a peg or two, but like all the way down the ladder rungs, right? Yes. Because again, like you mentioned at the end, in volume 2, not only are they portrayed as this perfection group, but they're like high status.
Yes.
They're all draped in gold. You think they're like, people that have been around for years and they have all this knowledge and stuff. And they're not even people. They're just a creation of the high evolutionary. They're just knowing that they don't even have their own free will. Again, that's something that I would think would be really interesting to play with, that I think, WandaVision kind of played with as well. Whether, the people of Westview actually had their own free will, or they were being decided upon by Wanda's spell. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there that you could deal with, about God complex, religion, all this kind of things that you can kind of play with the high evolutionary and the Sovereign, and creating all of these worlds that we don't really have time to spend with. So I think that's where the length can be long and short at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely be open to having more of that, but some of the commentary with the character and like I felt like when it came to talking about what he wants to do, there wasn't really much fat when it came to the high evolution.
Yeah,
like it was everything. It was like you could honestly like they stretched out like every last bit of what could come out of that character in this movie, like with the time that they had.
Look at you, a little bit of a facelift.
Oh wow, okay.
I'll also give a shout out to Craglin, because I didn't like looking at him.
Yeah,
2.5 hours.
No, it's he
hop on a treadmill.
The more and more I'm looking at him,
cut back on carbs.
You look more and more like Weasel, really.
Yeah, I mean that's who he was, Weasel, right, in the Suicide Squad. Yeah, that's literally. He's got that big old pop. He's got the skinny fat syndrome, and like that's a tough place to be.
The outfits were not very flattering.
Would you rather be in the skinny fat zone or the friend zone, Nick?
Oh, friend zone.
Yeah. Because then you could still be jacked, and then
exactly
not be in someone else's friend zone, but you're always carrying around the skinny fat.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Good thought there. Who won the movie, Nick?
Rocket fans. I could not be like, this is it, man. This is fucking awesome. Such a good movie, such an emotional movie. And all of it centered around him. And again, I didn't go in, neither of us went in, I don't think, thinking like Rocket's not going to be in like the present story for over half of the movie. And I still absolutely loved every single thing. And I can get very like picky about flashback stuff, and whether we're talking about movies or comics or shows, sometimes it can be really cool, really well done, but there are other times like, all right, like I get it, like we've gotten enough flashbacks, like fucking stop. I didn't feel that way at all here. I ate up every second of the flashbacks, and it was just like crushing the way it all came to an end. And then Groot had a great movie too, great showing for him.
Yeah, Groot was great, and then you get maybe the King Groot at the end there with the crown. So he's just kind of like hiding on like in the desert there, just as a lump of wood. So I think that's cool. Then he comes out and he's yoked. So yeah, absolutely. Fans in general, I think this was a great movie. If you're fans of the Guardians, if you're fans of the MCU who've been feeling that Phase 4 fatigue, maybe this offers a little bit of relief for you there. But really, I think it's James Gunn. This again maybe feels obvious.
Yeah, it's true.
But I think this is a great comeback. And when Adam Warlock gets welcomed into the Guardians and gets helped out by Groot and by Rocket, he says, "I tried to kill you. Why are you helping me?" Maybe it was to Drax. I forget who it was, but it was someone in the Guardians crew. And he said, it's because we all deserve second chances. And I felt that to be very meta. This was James Gunn's second chance at the Guardians after being fired for old tweets or whatever it was, right after Volume 2, and they brought him back on, and this was kind of I found it to be very meta, and it was like almost the way that they said it and the way that it kind of stood on its own made it seem like he was also like talking directly to the audience, like, thank you, we all deserve second chances. So I saw that as kind of a double entendre there. So
that was a great catch by you. I didn't know that's what it was for. Wow.
Not bad, right? That's all from this noggin here, too. That wasn't from watching other shit. So
I mean, that's why you're able to shoot from the hip, because there's so much going on in there.
Yeah, too much. Not enough sometimes. Maybe too much.
Which one is it now?
Yeah, it could be.
Moment's gone, everybody.
But yeah, that's it. That does it for the exit survey here for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Nick gave it a 93. I gave it a 91. That's good on the Richter scale for a 92 overall. Good for 9th place on the CMMCU rankings. So it's out in theaters. Go watch it now. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.